After my sister's death, my mom seemed to be floating on cloud nine, acting like she was finally free of the burden she'd always resented. But when I realized how disturbingly relieved she seemed, I gave her a brutal reality check that shattered her delusion and brought her crashing back down to earth. The shrill wail of the smoke alarm jolted me awake at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night in March. A wall of orange flames already separated my room from Lauren's, making it impossible to reach my 8-year-old sister. I barely escaped through my window, then watched our house succumb to the blaze, Lauren's butterfly curtains melting against her window pane. She didn't make it out. The following morning at the hospital, Travis Westbrook appeared with coffee and blankets. He introduced himself as Dad's college friend, a downtown firm owner. Mom's expression shifted strangely, a mix of relief and panic, as Travis offered help with temporary housing. What struck me was Mom's swift agreement, before Dad could even respond. Within a week, Travis secured us a furnished rental through his company at a reduced rate. When I asked Mom how she knew where the spare towels were, she said Travis had shown her the unit, but her answer felt rehearsed. At Lauren's funeral, Travis brought an extravagant floral arrangement and remained close to Mom, whose phone constantly buzzed with what she called insurance calls. I began noticing things I'd previously overlooked. Mom's consistent Wednesday night book club when Dad worked late, and her subsequent boost in energy. Travis started visiting twice a week with dinner, always on evenings Dad was at the office. He even offered Dad a position at his firm, which Dad gratefully accepted, praising Travis's generosity. Yet, I saw Travis's hand linger on Mom's back, and she never pulled away. Mom started wearing new clothes, claiming they were from Travis's wife, who was supposedly clearing out her closet. I never saw or heard about this wife again. The strangest part was Mom's reluctance to mention Lauren around Travis. He always steered conversations toward our future. Moving forward, I kept Lauren's stuffed elephant hidden and visited our burned lot after school. There, my stomach dropped. Amidst the debris, I found Mom's jewelry box, and inside, Lauren's friendship bracelet lay beside an expensive-looking bracelet I'd never seen her wear. When I asked Mom about it, she claimed it was a gift, but her face flushed, and she avoided my gaze. Travis began joining us for dinner regularly. I observed him subtly testing boundaries with small touches on Mom's arm or shoulder when Dad was preoccupied with work stress. Mom's grief seemed to dissipate around Travis but intensified around Dad, leading to louder arguments. Mom would claim Dad couldn't comprehend her pain the way Travis did. Then, everything changed. Walking home from school, I saw Mom's car at a restaurant where Travis was having lunch. When I texted asking her whereabouts, she replied she was grocery shopping. That night, I decided to test her, inquiring about the dinner ingredients she supposedly bought, but she couldn't recall which store she'd visited. Lauren's birthday approached, and I wanted us to visit her grave as a family. When I suggested it, Mom immediately called Travis for advice. He proposed celebrating life instead of dwelling on death and recommended a grief counselor who happened to be his friend. When I insisted on the cemetery, Mom accused me of trying to keep us trapped in tragedy, stating Travis understood healing better than a 16-year-old. I snapped, asking why Travis had a say in our family decisions and if that's why she lied about grocery shopping when she was with him. The silence was deafening. Mom began crying, claiming Travis was the only one who understood her grief. Dad walked in during her breakdown, and the way she instantly wiped her tears and smiled at Travis told him everything. That night, Dad confronted Mom, their fight audible through the walls. Mom admitted she'd been struggling in their marriage for months before the fire, and Travis had provided emotional support. The night of the fire, she was at Travis's office discussing her feelings and contemplating leaving Dad, but came home when she saw fire trucks on our street. Those critical 15 minutes, while Mom debated her marriage at Travis's office, cost Lauren her life. If Mom had been home, she would have gotten both of us out safely. Our family was now destroyed because Mom prioritized her emotional affair over being present for her children, and Lauren paid the ultimate price for Mom's choices. The next morning, at Grandma's house, my hands trembled as I scrolled through photos on my phone. Evidence of Mom's jewelry box, the mysterious bracelet, everything I'd documented at the burned lot. My finger hovered over the delete button, paranoia creeping up my spine. Someone could be watching, tracking my saves. The photos vanished one by one as Mom's fist pounded against the bedroom door, each knock making me flinch. The door burst open, and Mom stood there, tears streaming down her face. But she wasn't pleading for my silence or asking for understanding. Instead, she wiped her eyes and delivered words that froze my blood. Travis thought I had started the fire for attention. He had proof. My mouth went dry as I watched her clutch her phone to her chest, the screen still glowing. Her positioning felt staged, calculated. Later that night, when everyone slept, I crept into her room and checked her phone records. The timestamps turned my stomach. She'd been texting Travis throughout our entire conversation. Every word I'd said was transmitted to him in real time. They were building a case against me. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Travis had offered to pay for the town's top grief counselor, Dr. Walters, who specialized in pyromania in traumatized teens. The word pyromania echoed in my head as I stared out Grandma's window. That's when I saw it. Travis's silver Mercedes circling the block, slow and deliberate, like a shark sensing blood. I had to make a choice. Confront Mom about the recording or play along to learn their strategy. My hands trembled as I walked back to the living room where Mom sat dabbing her eyes. I sank into the chair across from her, letting my voice crack just enough to sound vulnerable. The night terrors had been worsening, I told her. Sometimes I dreamed about fires, about flames consuming everything. Mom's eyes lit up with something resembling relief as she typed furiously on her phone. While she went to make tea, I pressed against the kitchen window, and my heart stopped. Travis stood in Grandma's backyard, his phone raised toward my bedroom window, photographing the fire escape route. I fumbled for my own phone, attempting to capture evidence of his trespassing. The moment I lifted it, he noticed. He waved cheerfully, that practiced smile spreading across his face before strolling back to his car. That evening, I discovered something worse. Every photo I'd taken over the past month had vanished from my cloud storage. Not just deleted, but completely erased, as if they'd never existed. My evidence, my proof, all gone. The only explanation was someone had accessed my account during that phone repair Travis had insisted on handling last month. The back door opened, and Travis entered with grocery bags, moving through Grandma's kitchen as if he belonged there. He set down the bags and casually mentioned how worried he'd been about my obsession with matches lately. The words hung in the air as Grandma looked up from her knitting, her face troubled. She'd found matches in my jacket pocket, she said. The jacket I'd left in Travis's car the previous week. I pulled the matchbook from the pocket, and my hands went cold. The logo was from the Riverside Hotel, where Travis stayed during his visits. He watched me examine it with that same pleasant smile, knowing I couldn't say anything without sounding paranoid. Another piece of evidence planted, another step in their plan. The front door opened, and Mom's sister, Carol, walked in, but something was off. She kept checking her phone, her fingers tapping nervously against her purse. When I tried to meet her eyes, she looked away, focusing intently on the wall behind me. This was the aunt who used to sneak me extra dessert, who always took my side. Now she couldn't even look at me. The next day at Dad's rental, he pulled me aside, concern etched across his face. My teachers had sent an email about violent drawings found in my locker. He showed me the sketches on his laptop screen, dark, disturbing images of flames and destruction that I'd never seen before. The handwriting in the margins looked like mine, but I knew I hadn't drawn them. Travis must have planted them during one of his visits to my school for his mental health donations. My social media told a story I didn't recognize. Posts about feeling guilty, about not being able to stop thinking about fire. The timestamps showed they'd been published while my phone was being repaired at the shop Travis had recommended. He'd rewritten my digital history, creating a trail of evidence that painted me as disturbed and dangerous. The doorbell rang, and Travis entered with a man in an expensive suit. Dr. Walters, he introduced. Here for an emergency intervention. They sat across from me in Dad's living room, the doctor pulling out a tablet with notes. He played a recording from that morning, my voice talking about night terrors and fire dreams. Mom had sent it to them within minutes of our conversation. My phone vibrated with a text from Emma. Her mom had received an anonymous tip about my fire obsession, complete with photos that showed me holding lighters. The images were good, almost believable, but I recognized the background from a party I'd never attended. Someone had photoshopped my face onto another person's body, creating evidence of behavior that never happened. At school the next morning, Miss Peterson called me into her office. The counselor's usually warm smile seemed forced as she explained the mandatory sessions I'd need to attend. She mentioned Travis's generous donation to the school's mental health program. How lucky we were to have such support from the community. I wondered how much it had cost him to buy her cooperation. That afternoon, I discovered my diary in my desk drawer, but something was wrong. Pages had been photographed, the corners slightly bent from handling. Normal teenage frustrations about Mom had been documented, ready to be twisted into something sinister. Every angry thought, every moment of typical adolescent rage could be reframed as the warning signs of an arsonist. Dad's office felt like the only safe space left. But even there, Travis's influence crept in. Looking through old company photos on Dad's desk, I found one from a picnic 2 years ago. In the background, barely visible, but unmistakably him, stood Travis. He'd been circling our family long before the fire, long before Mom's supposed book club meetings. Uncle Mark stopped by the rental to check on us. As we talked, he mentioned something that made my skin crawl. At Christmas dinner months before the fire, Travis had pulled him aside to ask about my behavioral issues, whether I'd ever shown signs of acting out, of destructive tendencies. Mark had laughed it off at the time, said I was a normal teenager, but Travis had been building his narrative. Even then, the pattern became clear as I noticed Mom and Travis using identical phrases. The fire was a cry for help. I was struggling with Lauren's death in unhealthy ways. They repeated these words to anyone who would listen, coordinating their message to reframe murder as teenage rebellion. Every conversation followed the same script designed to plant doubt about my mental state. At the grocery store, Mrs. Lang approached me near the produce section. She'd lived across from our old house, had security cameras that might have caught something. But as she opened her mouth to speak, her eyes went wide. She backed away, mumbling an excuse about forgetting something. Through the store window, I saw Travis sitting in his car watching. He gave a small wave, and Mrs. Lang practically ran to her vehicle. Dad's coworker, Janet, pulled me aside at his office the next day. She warned me in hushed tones that Travis had been showing people disturbing drawings during lunch meetings. My supposed artwork was making the rounds, poisoning Dad's workplace against me. People who'd known me since I was little now looked at me with suspicion and fear. I tried to meet Mrs. Lang at the park, but Mom intercepted me at the door. Her face was set in false concern as she asked where I was going, why I was sneaking around. As she lectured me about trust and healing, I managed to slip a folded note into Mrs. Lang's mailbox on our way back. For words that might save me. He's framing me for Lauren's death. Emma's brother, Mike, found me after school with an uncomfortable expression. Travis had approached him at the coffee shop, offered him $500 to report any concerning behavior I might display. Mike had refused, but he wanted me to know. Travis was building a network of spies, trying to turn everyone into surveillance. Travis arrived at Grandma's house the next morning carrying a small leather journal. He placed it on the coffee table with reverent care, explaining he'd found it in Lauren's school locker during a memorial cleanup. Dad's face shifted as he recognized Lauren's handwriting on the cover. I reached for it, but Travis pulled it back, suggesting we read it together as a family for healing purposes. The entries were disturbing. Lauren wrote about being scared of me, about finding matches under my bed, about nightmares where I hurt her. But something felt wrong. The phrases were too mature, the handwriting slightly off. I realized Travis had studied Lauren's social media posts and homework samples to forge this diary. He'd copied her writing style, but didn't understand her personality. Lauren would never use words like pyromaniac tendencies or escalating behavior patterns. Dad's mother called that afternoon. Her voice trembled as she explained her concerns about my mental state. Travis had sent her photos of the planted matches along with excerpts from the fake diary. She believed every word. My own grandmother now thought I was dangerous. The betrayal cut deeper than any accusation. Emma stood by me despite mounting pressure. Her parents had installed security cameras around their house, she admitted during lunch. Not for actual protection, but because other parents were questioning their judgment in maintaining our friendship. She handed me a burner phone, explaining we needed secure communication. Her loyalty came at a cost I hadn't anticipated. I kept the hotel matchbook hidden in my shoe, rotating hiding spots daily. It represented the only physical evidence linking Travis to specific locations and dates. Every other piece of proof had been digitized and deleted, but this small cardboard rectangle remained tangible. I photographed it from multiple angles using Emma's phone, uploading copies to new cloud accounts Travis didn't know existed. The fire marshal's office received an anonymous tip about my supposed history of fire starting. An investigator arrived at Dad's rental, asking pointed questions about my behavior before the fire. Dad defended me fiercely, but doubt crept into his voice when the investigator mentioned the diary entries. The official review found no evidence supporting the claims, but the investigation itself became another mark against me. Mrs. Lang finally managed to meet me at the library. She glanced around nervously before sliding a USB drive across the table. Her security footage showed something odd from that night. Mom had left the house carrying 2 bags around 11 p.m., but returned empty-handed. The timestamp proved she'd been gone during the crucial window when the fire started. Mrs. Lang squeezed my hand before leaving, warning me to be careful with the information. Research consumed my evenings as I dug into Travis's background. His company specialized in family crisis management and reputation rehabilitation. The website used vague corporate language, but the underlying service became clear. He was a professional gaslighter, someone who manipulated narratives for wealthy clients. Our family had become his latest project, though I couldn't understand why we'd been targeted. Dr. Walters let something slip during our 3rd mandatory session. While discussing treatment options, he mentioned Travis had promised him the chief of psychiatry position at a new private hospital. The appointment depended on successfully diagnosing and treating a high-profile case of adolescent pyromania, my case. He caught himself mid-sentence, face flushing as he realized his mistake. Dad started leaving work early to monitor me. Travis's manipulation succeeded in turning my only ally into a reluctant guard. He installed a lock on my bedroom door that could only be opened from the outside for my safety, he explained, avoiding eye contact. The imprisonment felt suffocating, but arguing would only reinforce Travis's narrative about my instability. The insurance investigator mentioned receiving an anonymous package suggesting I had motive for Lauren's death, an inheritance from grandma's. Well, that would have been split between us. The package was postmarked 2 days after the fire, but had been backdated to seem older. Someone had planned this angle in advance, anticipating the insurance company's investigation process. Grandma admitted during Sunday dinner that Travis had been visiting her for months. He'd come by for tea, always steering conversation toward family medical history. Had anyone shown signs of mental illness? Were there any genetic predispositions she worried about? She thought he was being caring, gathering information to help our family. Instead, he'd been building a psychiatric case against me. Travis demonstrated his control that same evening. While Dad carved the roast, Travis casually mentioned my recent episodes. Mom quickly agreed, describing behaviors I'd never exhibited. They performed their rehearsed double team while Dad watched, his knife pausing mid-slice. Travis touched Mom's hand openly across the table, no longer hiding their connection. The boarding school brochures appeared on Dad's desk the following week. Travis had researched therapeutic wilderness programs in Utah, places that promised to fix troubled teens through isolation and hard work. He presented each option with practiced enthusiasm, highlighting their success rates with fire-starting behaviors. Dad listened without commenting, but I saw him bookmark the websites. Carol pulled me aside after a family gathering. Her hands shook as she explained Travis had threatened to expose her husband's gambling addiction unless she supported Mom's version of events. The debts had nearly cost them their house, and Travis somehow knew every detail. She apologized through tears, trapped between protecting her family and telling the truth. Credit card records I found in Mom's drawer revealed purchases from the day before the fire. Men's clothing in Travis's sizes, toiletries he preferred, items suggesting he'd planned to stay over. Lauren's death hadn't been part of the plan. She was supposed to be at a sleepover that got canceled last minute. The realization that my sister died because of scheduling changes made me physically ill. Travis's web of influence became clearer through small corruptions. Dr. Walters needed money for his failing practice. Carol faced blackmail about her husband's debts. The school depended on Travis's donations for their mental health program. Each person had been carefully selected and compromised, creating a network of reluctant accomplices. Mrs. Lang's extended footage revealed more disturbing details. Travis's car had arrived at our house at 11:30 p.m. that night for what Mom had called a late dinner. This matched his pattern from previous visits when Dad worked overnight shifts. But this time, Travis had been inside when the fire started. He'd been in our house while Lauren burned. Emma discovered her parents had hired a private investigator to monitor my movements. The PI approached her at the mall, mentioning offhandedly that Travis was paying half his fee. My best friend's family was unknowingly collaborating with my enemy. Their protective instincts weaponized against me. Emma confronted them that night, but they dismissed her concerns as teenage dramatics. Dad found my hidden notes about Travis's timeline while searching my room for matches. Instead of anger, I saw confusion cross his face. The evidence contradicted everything Travis had told him. He sat on my bed, studying the timeline I'd constructed from memory and Mrs. Lang's footage. For the first time in weeks, he looked at me without suspicion. The urge to plant evidence against Travis grew stronger each day. I could easily leave something incriminating in his car or office, but I recognized the trap. He was waiting for me to cross that line, to do something that would validate his narrative about my instability. Restraint became my weapon, though it felt like surrender. I confronted Travis at a coffee shop downtown, armed with printouts of his emails to Dr. Walters about their consulting arrangement. His reaction surprised me. Instead of denial or anger, he smiled and pulled out his phone. He'd been recording our entire conversation, waiting for me to threaten him or say something incriminating. Every interaction was a chess move in his game. Travis's ex-business partner reached out to Dad through LinkedIn. The message described a lawsuit from 5 years ago where Travis had been accused of framing a client's child for vandalism during a custody dispute. The case had been settled quietly, records sealed, but the pattern was identical. Travis specialized in destroying children to achieve his goals. Dr. Walters escalated his accusations during our next session. He claimed I'd confessed to starting previous fires, producing medical records that showed a history of pyromania. The documents were expertly forged, complete with timestamps and professional terminology. If I hadn't known they were fake, I would have believed them myself. The pattern emerged through careful analysis. Travis had done this at least 3 times before, always targeting families with existing tragedies, always framing the surviving child for additional crimes, always positioning himself as the helpful friend who could manage the crisis. He'd perfected his technique over years, learning from each family he destroyed. Dad discovered tracking apps on all our phones during a routine security check. Travis had installed them during a helpful security update after the fire, claiming he wanted to ensure our safety. Every movement, every communication had been monitored. Dad's face darkened as he realized the depth of surveillance we'd been under. Mom's conviction and my guilt wavered when I showed her the evidence. She admitted Travis had promised to get me the help I needed, genuinely believing his narrative about my dangerous behavior. The manipulation ran so deep, she couldn't distinguish his thoughts from her own. Her tears seemed genuine as she grappled with the possibility she'd been used. Mark apologized for doubting me, but warned that Travis was now investigating his tax records. Several family members had received similar threats, their financial histories scrutinized for leverage. Travis was expanding his targets, threatening the entire extended family to maintain control over his primary victims. The insurance payout date approached with mounting tension. Travis pressured Mom to have me committed before the money arrived, arguing that a 72-hour psychiatric hold would protect everyone. He'd already prepared the paperwork, needing only Mom's signature to lock me away. The deadline created urgency in his movements, desperation creeping into his calculated actions. Mom's book club friend reached out with a disturbing story. She'd been Travis's target 2 years ago after her nephew died in an accident. Her sister had been blamed, their family torn apart by accusations and planted evidence. She'd recognized the pattern when she heard about our situation. Travis had destroyed her family the same way he was destroying ours. The realization crystallized as I studied Travis's methods. I had to destroy him completely or face lifetime institutionalization for Lauren's death. There would be no middle ground, no peaceful resolution. He'd invested too much in framing me to simply walk away. This was a fight for survival. With my freedom and future at stake, my approach shifted from defensive to offensive. Instead of just collecting evidence, I began systematically dismantling Travis's credibility using his own methods. I studied his tactics, learned his strategies, adopted his careful planning. If he wanted to play psychological warfare, I would meet him on his chosen battlefield. Anonymous packages began arriving at the homes of extended family members. Each contained documentation of Travis's pattern with previous families, evidence of his manipulations, proof of his crimes. I'd spent nights compiling the information, ensuring each package was personalized to its recipient. The seeds of doubt needed to be planted carefully. Travis's allies received targeted information about how he was using them. Dr. Walters got copies of emails showing Travis had made similar promises to other psychiatrists. The school board learned about lawsuits against Travis's previous donations. Each person in his network discovered they were expendable tools in his larger scheme. Dad filed for a restraining order against Travis, finally convinced of the danger he posed. The petition was denied. The judge, I learned, was a family friend Travis had cultivated through charitable donations. The legal system that should have protected us had been compromised. We were on our own against an enemy who'd anticipated every move. Travis arranged for me to be called to the principal's office for mandatory counseling. Dr. Walters waited there with commitment papers, ready to declare me a danger to myself and others. But I prepared for this moment. I presented my own evidence to the psychiatric evaluation team, including recordings of Travis coaching Mom on what to say about my behavior. The business Travis had built began crumbling as anonymous tips reached his major clients. Court records from his previous schemes, testimonies from families he destroyed. Evidence of his methods spread through carefully targeted leaks. His professional reputation, the foundation of his power, started showing cracks. Financial pressure would make him desperate, I hoped. Dad's complete transformation gave me hope. He devoted himself to protecting me, choosing sides in the growing family conflict. He installed security cameras that Travis didn't know about, documented every interaction, built our own surveillance network. We were learning to fight back using Travis's weapons against him. 3 families came forward after seeing social media posts about Travis's pattern. Each told similar stories of tragedy, manipulation, and destroyed children. The collective evidence painted Travis as a serial predator who specialized in exploiting grief. Their testimony strengthened our case, though legal action remained frustratingly elusive. The insurance company launched its own investigation into Travis's involvement with multiple suspicious payouts. His name appeared in too many tragedies. His consulting firm connected to too many contested claims. Corporate bureaucracy moved slowly, but the investigation represented another pressure point in our campaign against him. Mom's breaking point came when Travis threatened to have me permanently committed if she didn't comply with his demands. The mask slipped, revealing the monster beneath his helpful exterior. She recorded the conversation on her phone, finally understanding she'd been manipulated by a predator who'd orchestrated her daughter's death. The full scope of Travis's plan became clear through painstaking investigation. He'd researched Dad's insurance policies months before initiating the affair with Mom. Lauren's death had always been part of his design, timed to maximize the payout while creating a convenient scapegoat. Every kind gesture, every offer of help had been calculated manipulation. The evidence package I compiled filled 3 binders. Each page documented Travis's pattern across multiple families, always the same sequence of grief, exploitation, child framing, financial gain. I spread the documents across Dad's dining table, highlighting the similarities between our case and his previous victims. Dad's jaw tightened as he recognized our story repeated in different names, different cities, same predator. Research into Dad's insurance policies revealed Travis had accessed them through his position at the firm months before initiating contact with Mom. The life insurance payout for Lauren would be substantial, but only if no family member was implicated in arson. Travis had crafted the perfect scenario. Mom distracted by false guilt. Me framed as the disturbed teenager, him positioned as the supportive friend managing the crisis. I assembled everything into a comprehensive package for the district attorney's office. Police reports from Travis's previous schemes, testimonies from other families, financial records showing his pattern of targeting grieving parents. Dad drove me to deliver it personally, his hand steady on my shoulder as we walked through the courthouse doors. The prosecutor's assistant accepted our evidence with professional courtesy, promising someone would review it within standard time frames. But as we left, I noticed the prosecutor himself emerged from his office. Golf bag slung over his shoulder. The country club logo matched the one on Travis's car. My stomach sank as I realized another door had closed before we'd even knocked. Travis's other victims began reaching out through social media, forming an informal support network. 3 families filed civil suits against him, their lawyers sharing information and strategies. Criminal charges might be impossible, but civil court offered another path. The financial pressure mounted as Travis's assets became tied up in legal proceedings. At school, Travis arrived with Mom, claiming I posed immediate danger to myself and others. Security footage captured him grabbing my arm when I tried to walk away, his fingers digging into my skin as he insisted I needed help. But his aggressive behavior backfired. Other parents witnessed the scene, saw his mask slip, watched him manhandle a teenager while claiming to protect her. The community divided as competing narratives spread through social media and parent groups. Some still believed Travis's version, convinced by the planted evidence and careful manipulation. Others began questioning why this helpful businessman seemed so invested in destroying a grieving teenager. The controversy created exactly the kind of attention Travis had tried to avoid. My deposition for the civil cases stretched across 6 hours. Travis's lawyer attempted every angle to paint me as a disturbed arsonist, but I prepared for months. Each accusation met documented evidence of Travis's manipulation. Every supposed symptom of pyromania countered with proof of planted evidence. The hotel matchbook, preserved in an evidence bag, became crucial physical proof of his deception. Emma's family organized supporters to attend the deposition, filling the conference room with people who knew the real me. Their presence rattled Travis's lawyer who'd expected an isolated, vulnerable teenager. Instead, he faced someone backed by community members who'd watched me grow up, teachers who'd never seen concerning behavior, friends who knew my character. The decision to release our evidence publicly came after another legal setback. We created a website documenting Travis's pattern, uploading court records, testimonies, and evidence of his schemes. Media attention followed, though we kept the focus on Travis's methods rather than our family's tragedy. Local news picked up the story of a businessman who specialized in exploiting grief. Travis responded with threats of defamation lawsuits, producing new evidence of my supposed instability. Doctored videos showed me exhibiting dangerous behavior, deep fakes created from social media photos and security footage. But technology experts quickly identified the forgeries, their analysis adding to our growing collection of proof about his methods. The meeting at our burned house site felt like walking into a trap. Travis had requested all parties gather to discuss a settlement, claiming he had definitive proof about the fire's origin. Dad insisted on accompanying me along with our lawyer and 2 security guards. The charred foundation still smelled of smoke and loss. Lauren's room now just an outline in ash. Mom arrived separately, her face drawn, but determined. She pulled out her phone and played recordings she'd been making secretly for weeks. Travis's voice filled the space between blackened walls, describing how he drugged her the night of the fire to ensure she'd sleep deeply. He'd needed her unconscious while he set his plan in motion. Though Lauren's unexpected presence had complicated things, his original scheme emerged through Mom's recordings. He'd planned a small fire, easily controlled, just enough to trigger insurance claims. While Mom slept off the sedatives, he'd been in the house waiting for the right moment when Lauren had come downstairs for water. The fire had spread faster than expected, trapping her before he could react. He'd fled through the back door, leaving my sister to die. A woman stepped forward from behind the ruins of our garage. Travis's ex-wife introduced herself, explaining she'd divorced him after discovering he'd caused her sister's house fire during her nephew's funeral. The pattern stretched back further than any of us had imagined. She'd brought bank records showing payments from grieving families, proof of his systematic exploitation of tragedy. The state investigators who'd taken over our case after media pressure arrived to witness the confrontation. They'd found enough evidence to pursue charges, though Travis's connections still offered protection. He stood among the ashes of our home, his confident smile finally faltering as former victims surrounded him with their truth. Travis made one final play, producing a USB drive he claimed contained security footage of me starting the fire, but technical analysis revealed the footage had been created using AI. My image superimposed over someone's actions. The very sophistication of his forgery became evidence of his guilt. No teenager could have created such elaborate deceptions. Dad's testimony proved crucial as he detailed Travis's psychological manipulation, the slow isolation of our family, the systematic destruction of my credibility. His voice broke when he described finding the lock he'd installed on my door, realizing he'd imprisoned his own daughter based on lies. The investigators documented every word, building their case against a predator who'd hidden behind charity and false concern. Travis's final defense crumbled as his previous victims testified via video link. Each family told the same story with different details: mysterious fires, convenient scapegoats, helpful friends who weren't what they seemed. The pattern was undeniable. His methods exposed. Without criminal conviction possible due to his connections, civil judgments mounted into millions. Financial pressure forced Travis to liquidate his assets and leave the state. The civil settlements barely covered our losses, but money had never been the goal. We'd wanted him stopped, his methods exposed, his ability to hurt other families ended. Victory felt hollow with Lauren still gone, but at least no other child would suffer his manipulations. Mom accepted partial responsibility in the civil proceedings, acknowledging her role in creating the circumstances that led to Lauren's death. Our relationship would never fully recover. Trust shattered beyond repair, but honesty replaced the lies Travis had woven between us. She moved to a small apartment across town, our interactions limited to necessary communications about legal matters. Dad and I began the slow process of rebuilding our lives. Therapy helped, though trust came slowly. We both jumped at unexpected sounds, checked locks obsessively, struggled with the paranoia Travis had instilled. Some wounds don't heal cleanly. We learned to function with the scars, supporting each other through the difficult days. I created a foundation in Lauren's name focused on identifying and preventing predatory manipulation of grieving families. Using the knowledge gained from our ordeal, we developed resources to help families recognize the warning signs of exploitation. The work gave purpose to our pain, transforming tragedy into prevention tools for others. 6 months later, reports surfaced of Travis operating in another state under an assumed name. He'd attached himself to a family whose son had drowned, offering support and guidance while secretly investigating their finances. The pattern continued, but now people knew what to watch for. Our website traffic spiked as the new family researched his background, finding the warnings we'd left for others. 2 years after the fire, I sat in the state capitol building, preparing to testify before the legislature. The Lauren's Law bill would require background checks for grief counselors and establish a database to track patterns of exploitation. My hands shook as I approached the microphone, thinking of my sister's butterfly curtains, her friendship bracelet, her life cut short by a predator who saw opportunity in our family's vulnerabilities. The committee listened as I described Travis's methods, how he'd studied our family for months, exploited existing tensions, created elaborate false evidence to frame a grieving teenager. I explained how current laws offered little protection against such psychological manipulation, how predators could move between states and continue their patterns without consequence. Lauren's Law passed unanimously, A small victory that wouldn't bring her back, but might protect others. The system had failed until we forced it to work, pushed by tragedy to create change. Travis remained free somewhere, probably planning his next exploitation, but we'd made it harder for him and others like him to operate without scrutiny. I still sleep with lights on, still triple-check every door, still flinch when someone mentions fires. The paranoia Travis instilled became part of my daily routine, a permanent reminder of how trust can be weaponized. But I've learned to live with the fear, channeling it into vigilance for others who might face similar predators. Lauren's memory drives me forward. Her loss transformed into purpose, ensuring no other family endures what Travis put us through.